What is going on, guys? And today I'm here with Nicole Luongo. We have a very special episode today. Today is March 25th, which means it's Cerebral Palsy Awareness Day. Now, I don't know if you guys know what CP is, but I'm thinking that Nicole and I could kind of go back and forth on this because we both have different types of CP. So for me, I have spastic hemiplegia cerebral palsy, which means I was born with a lack of oxygen in my brain. So it impacts the right side of my body. So when I walk with a limp. I may drag my right foot, and sometimes I might be limited in doing things physically. But that doesn't mean that as a person with a disability, we can't do things as well as others. So Nicole, why don't you do you feel like joining in?
Yes. Hi, David. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast on this very special day, National Cerebral Palsy Awareness Day. I can't tell you how much it means to me to be able to talk to you, somebody else who has cerebral palsy. I have a different type of cerebral palsy than you do. I have spastic diplegia, which is the most common type of cerebral palsy. And it just means that basically the lower half of my body is affected. So from my legs down. And like you said, cerebral palsy is caused either before birth, during birth, or after birth. So, I'm not a doctor or anything, and neither are you, but we'll try to share some facts and sprinkle them in. But I think I'm trying to remember if it's 1 in 500 births. Now I can't remember the exact statistics, but cerebral palsy is the most common physical disability in childhood, period.
It is. And I don't know how accurate this number is, but it affects 1 in 17 million in the world.
Well,
that's in the US.
Over 18 million now globally.
Okay.
Globally have cerebral palsy, but in the US, I didn't come prepared with my numbers, but maybe I could just do a quick Google search while we're on here on my phone, and I can let you know. But yeah, it's shocking to me that cerebral palsy doesn't get the recognition it deserves. There's no federal funding for cerebral palsy. Adults like you and me were basically left to fend for ourselves. And I don't know about you, David, but I've been asking my friends this question. How many months of the year do you have cerebral palsy? Is it just in March?
It's pretty much a full year, calendar year.
Yeah, I thought. Yep. So.
Yep. It's unfortunate though that all these different disabilities, whether physical or developmental, get recognized, but when it comes to CP, it just kind of gets pushed aside. Yeah. And speaking about that, you yourself are a major disability advocate, and I've seen some of your work. For example, I think it was in 2019, you actually wrote a petition and shared it with, I guess, on Twitter with the President Biden in the White House to try to get the White House lit up.
That was actually last year when I started that. I did it this year too, but I really didn't focus on it this year because obviously they're not paying attention. So if I'm the kind of person, if something's not working, I just move on, because there's only so much you can do. But if people follow me on Twitter at green4CP, they'll see my pinned post from like January 25th, 2021, where I tweeted the president, and unbeknownst to me, somehow this thing, I don't know, it has over 66,000 views now. I don't know. I don't know how that works. It was nothing I planned, but I just kept resharing it, and then I don't know. So it's still going, but I don't do a lot with it because I'd rather talk to people like you and not do things that I feel like we're right. Actually doing something,
Yeah, it's like
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do have my friends at WAWOS. We're all working on something. They have a campaign right now where they're doing the similar thing. They're trying to get the White House to light up. And coincidentally, David, did you see it? On St. Patrick's Day, the White House lit up in green.
Yeah, I saw that after you've tried to fight for it for so long, they finally did it.
No, it was for St. Patrick's Day. They did it for the Irish people.
What? Are you kidding me?
Listen,
Oh
we love Irish
wow.
people. Let's just
Wow.
put it there.
Yeah,
Let's just put it
yeah.
out there
Let's
right
just
now.
yeah, let's just leave it at that. But hey, like I said, we're so underrepresented right now. It's like it's ridiculous, and but it's up to us to come together and kind of unite and really just push that awareness out forward. Um, you are also an author and you're also the creator of What CP Looks Like. And I'd like to know, how did you come up with that?
Okay, well, this is actually kind of a funny story. And you might know my friend Trevor Lane. I'm not sure if you guys are friends on social media. If you're not, you need to be,
Yeah.
because you guys both work out and you'd really like him and he'd really like you. Well, so Trevor now is, I think, 22 or 23, but when he was like 16 or maybe 17, it was quite a few years ago that I did this, but he would post videos of himself, just like you do, working out and doing different things. And I don't know why. I was like, well, I'll just do a plank for Trevor and be like, hey, Trevor, like, here I am doing this plank. And I kid you not, literally, I was like either mid plank or I just shot the video for him just as a, like, hey, joke, but kind of just having fun. That idea popped into my head. What CP looks like. I said, that's it. Because how many people do you talk to, your friends, people we know in our community? Our CP is not the same. We can have the same type, and it's just not the same. We can identify because there's certain things that are similar. And that just popped into my head. And anybody who knows me knows when I think of something, I run with it. And that's what I did. I created a Facebook page with the same name. It's now gone because I was hacked last year and Facebook deleted my What Cerebral Palsy Looks Like page. They also deleted my verified page because I did have one with a blue check mark. So I just ran with it. I was like, hey, I think this is something. It wasn't for me. It was a way I wanted to change the perceptions of how society viewed people with cerebral palsy. So I was like, well, if people use this hashtag and maybe we could all show the world, this is what CP looks like. David,
Exactly.
you are what CP looks like. Trevor, he's what CP looks. We can name all sorts of people that we know and people in our community, and we're all what CP looks like.
Yeah, I mean it's to the eye of the beholder. Everybody's different. Everybody acts differently towards situations. Everybody does things differently, and but at the end of the day, we all accept each other regardless of how we do things.
That's right, and all we're asking for is for society to do the same thing and just give us a seat at the table. We'll take care of the rest. Just give us a seat.
Exactly, and not only that, but give the recognition and the for someone that deserves it. The recognition of what they accomplish, what they come up with, and as much as I hate to bring this up, please give credit to those who deserve it.
Oh yes, that's very important. Just with anybody, I don't care if you have a disability or not. Creators of any, it could be content creation, it could be writing, because I've had a lot of my articles that have been stolen. It could be, music, anything that somebody comes up with in their mind and their work and they put it out there, give them credit for it and come up with your own stuff, because you're just as creative too. You don't have to take somebody else's material or creation. And plus, I think it's better to be unique anyway. Don't you, David?
Yes, I do think it's better to be unique and to be yourself, and if you are going to use material that belongs to someone, ask permission. And if they agree with you, then go ahead. If not, don't just blatantly take it.
Well, I don't know if you've seen this, but I have in our community. Some people and it doesn't have to be our community, but I mean, that's where I am a lot of the time. Some people just, they think, well, it's okay if it's not anything that's on the internet that you see, you can just take it. And it really doesn't work that way. I mean, some things are really against the law that you can't do. But even if something's not illegal, it still doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
So, it's a little complex, but I do appreciate people like you and other people that I collaborate with, where we're like, hey, but we like to support each other. We like to say, like, don't you have bracelets that you sell? Like, we like to say, hey, this is my friend David and he sells this bracelet and this is where you can get it. And I have a book. So you say, well, if you're interested in Nicole's book, this is where you can get. We just like to put it out there and support each other, because we know how hard it is to, well, let's say it. I don't make any money for all the advocacy work I do.
Right.
So
It's difficult. It's very, very difficult. There's
yeah.
times where we can get a break and make something, and there's times where most of the time it's a
labor of
dud.
love. It's a labor of love.
But
Most of the time, yeah.
I don't know about you, but for me to do advocacy and stuff and what I do with the podcast, I do it because I'm passionate about it and I love what I do, and I love meeting the people that I meet every single time, and it's all worth it.
Like I just said, it's a labor of love. Absolutely. I've been doing this now for well over 9 years. I mean, at least 9, because it's going to be my selective dorsal rhizotomy surgery 9-year anniversary on the 29th of this month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I have been educating people even before I went into the operating room about the surgery, because I was upset that most people don't know about it. So, but I think before you transition, if you're going to talk about something else, I think you mentioned 2019 because you wanted to make people aware of the lightings that I did in that year.
Yes.
Would you like me to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Definitely.
Okay. So again, I'm just one of these people that ideas will pop into my head, and I was kind of going through a lot because my mother had died in January of 2017, and I just needed something to do. I needed something positive to do. And in, October of 2018, I was responsible for getting the Seattle Great Wheel to light up for CP. That was the only lighting that I had ever looked into, and I had to get a sponsor for that one because they charge for that. And I teamed up with a local organization in Seattle, and they paid the fee. And so after that, I just said, well, maybe I could try to get more. I had no experience, had no idea what I was doing. I spent the next 6 months of my life pretty much 24/7 researching, sending emails. I mean, you can't imagine, because I got over 100 lightings in 48 states.
That is incredible.
On 2 different days of the year. On March 25th, which is National Cerebral Palsy Awareness Day in the United States, and on October 6th, which is World CP Day. So in addition to those lightings, I also had lightings in 3 different countries for the World CP Day lighting. So, and all that information, if people go to my website, NicoleLuongo.com, David will have it all in the show notes. There's a tab, Go Green for CP, and you can literally run down all the states and see wherever you live. Maybe there was one close to you, or I actually had all 50, David, but 2 states dropped. Because I tried to make sure I had 2 in each state, because if something happened, or really one of them, it was really interesting. The guy responsible for the lighting, he actually had cerebral palsy. It was one of those freak things. He forgot about it. And I would email these people constantly, so it wasn't like, but what can I do? And it wasn't something I planned. Like, I didn't go into it saying, oh, I'm going to be the first person ever to get because no one's ever done it. I'm the only person who's ever done it, and I don't work for a nonprofit. Nobody paid me, but that wasn't what I was. It just snowballed because within 30 days, I had lightings in 30 states. I believe that's how it. So I knew something bigger was going on in the universe. That's why I
Right.
said, well, let's keep going.
Going back to your you said you had your what is it, your fifth anniversary? No, was it your fifth anniversary for your dorsal rhizotomy, or your
It's coming up on the 9th anniversary.
ninth anniversary?
Yes.
Believe it or not, I had a rhizotomy, but mine was 25 years ago this year.
Oh my God, congratulations.
Yep. So I had my surgery early when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. I was about 2.5 months shy of 40 when I had mine. So that was a big deal because really, well, Dr. Park pioneered his technique. He's world renowned for selective dorsal rhizotomy, but he's pretty much, as far as I know, there's one or two other, surgeon, and everybody's great. However, Dr. Park is the best. I will say that nobody will operate on people my age. They won't. They can't. They won't do it. He's pretty much the only one. And because he had such great success with patients like myself and other patients, in a certain age category, now the cutoff date for people who meet the candidacy requirement is 50 years old. When I had my surgery, the cutoff date was 40, and I was like, oh my God, I'm 39. Like, is this going to be a problem? And they're like, no, because once they saw that I was a candidate, they're like, no, you're okay.
So to kind of educate our listeners, what is a select dorsal rhizotomy?
All right. The easiest way to explain selective dorsal rhizotomy surgery is it's a surgery that they go in and they perform surgery on your back, and they test the nerve roots that are causing the problem. We all know spasticity is the problem for cerebral palsy. Spasticity causes all the tightness that we experience. And they test these nerve roots, and then they see which ones are misfiring, so to speak. And I think Dr. Park cuts two-thirds of them. So they literally zap them. They cut them, they zap them, whatever they do. And Dr. Park, if you have surgery with Dr. Park, there's a very high percentage, chance, like in my case, that you won't have any spasticity anymore. And I don't. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have cerebral palsy, and it doesn't mean that I don't have challenges associated with cerebral palsy, because there's no cure. And I always tell people that, because that's important to remind people. But in the words of Dr. Park, when he evaluated me, he said, and I believe this is pretty much a direct quote, you'll be able to do more with less effort. So people can watch my YouTube videos. You can see how I walk before, how I walk now. It's like night and day. And that wasn't something I expected, because they really can't predict that. Like, you have to go through the rehab, it's going to affect everybody differently. And it's just, the transformation was unbelievable. So, and that's why I started the article for the Huffington Post. I was in Dr. Park's group. He has a group on Facebook. Now there's, I don't even know how many 100,000 or whatever people in it. And I started reading all these messages, people saying, yeah, I never heard of it either, like for their children, or what, at one after another, that they stumbled on this information. So I said, that's not acceptable. I think that this should be widely known, so that parents, if they wanted to look into it, they could, but you can't look into something you don't know anything about. So I was trying to get published by HuffPost and couldn't figure out how to get them to, read my emails or whatever. So I said, well, I'm going to message Ariana Huffington on Facebook. And that's what I did. She answered me back. I cried, and the rest is history. She said, we'd love to have you, because at that time they had a contributor network. They don't have it anymore. So I do have like 4 articles over there, but that article, it's still changing people's lives today. And it was published back in 2014. And people write to me and they say, I had the surgery because of you. My child had this. It's crazy. I mean, in a good way. It's the most
It's
gratifying thing.
yeah, it's incredible what the power of an article or something you might post on social media does for you. Like for example, for me, I had graduated from UCF in 2016. Now I had a moment that made it into that practically made for me, it was a little bit of history. I kind of left a legacy there. So for me, it happened on the day of graduation. I was set to walk up on stage to get my diploma, and they'd asked me, "Do you want to go up the stairs? Do you want to go up the ramp?" And I told them, "You know what? I waited 17 long years for this moment. Um, I lost my mom throughout the process. You know, my biological mom early on in life, and I'm doing this not just for my family, not for my mom, but for me, because I went through all these trials and tribulations, and I went up the steps, and you could barely hear a cricket, like you could barely hear the crowd going off at all. And as soon as I lifted the cane up in the air, that place erupted, and I mean for like a good 5 minutes, I just stood there just looking at the crowd and trying to keep my emotions, and the department chair was trying to whisper to me, you know, congratulations. And then come 2 weeks later, my friend tags me on the UCF page on the comment section. Everybody's talking about me, you know, about that part of the cane, and that made it into the UCF commencement commercial, and it's been there ever since.
That's such a
They
beautiful
play it every
story.
year.
Can I ask you a question to just turn the tables on you a little bit? Because this is a subject that we also hear in our community. Now that you're a little bit older, do you feel in any way that contributed to what is known as inspiration porn?
In some way, I mean, it did in some ways, but honestly, um, I don't want people to, you know, to consider me or both of us as inspirations for the most part, but just people that want to contribute
Right.
something towards society, you
That's right.
know?
Because I don't care, like if, whatever gets out there, we really can't control if it's labeled as, whatever. But like what I like to say is, you know what? First of all, David, you and I are inspirational just as people. So if people want to say that we are, great.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. You know, I definitely, you
Yes.
know, definitely, yeah, for sure.
But I have friends who say to me, which I understand, like, oh, if they go to the grocery store, they're inspirational because they're getting groceries at the store, which is so ridiculous.
See, that is something I completely agree with you is, or I don't know if you've gone as far as to have somebody approach you and they'll be like, can I pray for you? Can I pray for your healing? You know, it's like,
No, but I've had people tell me that. So you've had that happen to you?
oh yeah, multiple times. It's so awkward.
How do you? It's never happened to me. So how do you feel when that happens, and what do you do?
I just tell them, you know, I appreciate your kindness and your generosity, but when it comes to CP, there's nothing you can't really do. You know, I mean, I appreciate you trying to be kind and thinking that it can get better and I could be fully healed, but to be honest with you, it
Well, that's
can't.
a very nice response, because I think if it happened to me, more than once, I might be a little like, okay, I have to find a way to maybe get people to understand a little bit. I would still be probably nice too, but
Yeah,
that's the other thing. What is wrong with us having cerebral palsy? We can't. I didn't ask to have cerebral palsy. You didn't ask to have cerebral palsy. We were born with it. There's nothing we can do. We choose to live our lives the best way that we know how, and we also have cerebral palsy. So it's kind of, to me, now that I like to say I'm old now. I don't feel old, but I'm gonna be 49. But it's like how long is it gonna take for the needle to move just a little bit? Just a little bit. It's we're not in like some kind of we don't have a rare disease. I mean, I could better understand it if it was rare, and it's not a disease. I didn't mean to use that terminology, but what cerebral palsy is not rare. So it's not like a lot of people don't have it, because it is the most common physical disability in childhood, but it's not portrayed in the media really ever, unless you're a cute little kid. And I don't know why, but I'm famously quoted as saying, like, children with CP grow up to be adults with CP. Our stories deserve to be told too. So why aren't people understanding that you, David, you were 5 at some point, and now you're older now? It's just like a kid, any other child with a disability or no disability at all. They grew up to be adults. So if we have a lifelong condition, it would stand to reason that we would need help with that condition, just like any other condition that somebody would have for the rest of their life.
Right. Speaking about growing up, how was it for you growing up? Did you struggle with any bullying? Did you find it kind of easy to navigate?
No, I was the youngest of 11 children. So that in and of itself was really dysfunctional. I mean, to be quite honest with you, very dysfunctional household. I had heel cord lengthening surgery, I think when I was 4.5. So I didn't walk on flat feet until I was 5. So I walked on my tiptoes, and I would put my hands in my siblings' shoes and my parents' shoes, and I would walk around the house. I think at that young age, I had, I don't know, some kind of mindset. I was like, you know what? I can't do it the traditional way, so I'm going to do it my way. And that's still what I'm doing now. As I'm talking to you, we find ways to do whatever we want to do. I didn't know anybody with cerebral palsy. I don't know if you did growing up, but I didn't know anybody. I think there may have been one girl at my middle school, now that I think back of how she walked, but I didn't have friends who were disabled. People liked me and all that, but I was teased, and it wasn't fun. That part of it. And like the worst, David, was PE.
Oh yeah, definitely PE.
Oh,
Especially, let me tell you, especially in high school, I wanted to partake in a lot of the normal activity as kids, but due to me being in the school and safety, and God bless my coach, God bless my PE coach, because she was incredible. I mean, she would literally like take the time to help me learn how to walk better and help me stretch and do different activities. But the one activity I did not like the most, which is probably the one that I kind of regret doing, was there were days where I'd sit in front of the TV and play Wii, play the Wii Fit and stuff. I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't like being around kids, outside playing sports. And then,
wait a second. Are you saying that while your classmates were outside, you were inside playing Wii?
no, with the coach, like the rest of the kids got to do the normal activities, for
Why
gym.
couldn't you?
I guess safety
I don't mean,
reasons,
I don't mean you. I mean, did they actually say, we don't want you to go out and participate in
Oh
there?
no, oh no. At the time, they had to find ways to kind of adapt me into the class because it was required for senior year.
Right.
So that was the only way they could do it, And
Oh,
so, I mean, like I said, my coach is awesome,
yeah.
and I still keep in touch with her to this day. And
That's
she used to compete
We
in
need more
the
people like that.
yeah she used to compete in the transplant games for the Special Olympics. So she used to coach and things like that. So she knows all about
Yeah. Well,
dealing
in
with
my
disabilities.
case, David, what I mean about, because I'm a very active person physically, and if I didn't have cerebral palsy, I'm telling you, I would have been some kind of, maybe a tennis player, or maybe I like in the Olympics where they run the really fast one. It's short and fast. It's like they get it over with and it's really fast. What is it? The 100-meter or whatever it is.
Yeah, 100 meter.
Anyway, I couldn't stand dodgeball. You know why? Because nobody wants a slow person on their team. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. When you're, and I remember that when you do like, baseball or whatever you're playing, I would have people, pinch run for me. Cause I felt like, I think I've always felt bad that like, maybe I knew in the back of my mind, I'm gonna ruin the, not like I actually said that to myself, but I know that I'm gonna slow everybody else down, and it's kind of, it's hard, when you want to participate. But also, do you remember when they would have patrols? What
The safety patrol, yeah, safety patrol.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to be a patrol, and they told me, I think they told me I was too small and I couldn't project my voice. Well, I got the job, David, because I was like, listen, I can do this thing, and I got it. I don't really remember what I did to get it, but I know that one day, one of my friends, because you literally have to stop people, if they're going out the wrong door, you blow a whistle or you yell really loud, hey, you can't go, and I think one of my friends one day, I got caught, one of my friends, and I'm like, you can't, that's the rule. It doesn't matter that they know me or whatever. I got the orange thing on. You can't, you can't violate whatever the rule is. So, yeah.
Did you, I don't know about you, but looking back, do you feel like a sense of, or did you feel like when you were making friends, like you mentioned how a lot of your friends didn't have disabilities. Now, did you feel kind of, in a sense, awkward when you first started making friends with disabilities? Because I honestly, I mean, this is me. I felt a little shy at first meeting somebody with a disability just like me, because I wasn't sure how we were gonna mesh, how we were gonna come together and make things work. And then as I got older, I started to realize, they're just like me. It's just they have a different disability. But I kind of felt really, really shy. I was like, what am I supposed to do with hanging out with them?
Right. Okay, well, shy is not in my vocabulary. So we're different in that respect, where I'm an extrovert. So basically, I just told one of my friends, I met a friend of mine who I've known for almost 30 years last night. And I'm like, he knows I pretty much came out of the womb talking. Anyone who ever meets me, I'm just friendly. And I don't even think that I had that awareness that I was pretty much the only one with a disability. I guess I was just so used to it that, and I just talked to people, and I was very smart. I was in advanced classes, and in high school, I was in advanced placement Spanish. So I had a different, well, except remedial math, because I think that's where the CP zaps that part of my brain.
Oh yeah, math for me, it was horrible.
Yep, and almost every person with CP that I talk to, I'm like, is math a problem? And they usually say that it is. Not that it's everybody, but I think there's a common thing there. So I think I love people. I love meeting people, but it was more of the physical part, because look, you're talking to me now. Nobody would know that I have cerebral palsy. They wouldn't know. But once you see me walk, less so now because of the surgery, but before, it really slapped you in the face. I couldn't hide it, even if, not that I'm saying I would have wanted to, but sometimes, obviously as kids, you want to blend in. You don't want everybody staring at you. Nobody really wants that, but I couldn't. That's not something that I could change. So that's where all the teasing came in, and things like that. And I love school too. So the place that I love to go was also the place that I was teased.
Yep, that's how I saw it would usually be. You go to school, you think everything's okay. Next thing you know, you have one or two kids trying to mess with you, but
yeah.
And sometimes the school may do something about it. Sometimes it'll just be like, hey, little Johnny, stop messing with so and so and leave him alone and go sit on the other side of the room. And but that's not the case, you know.
Yeah, well, back then, I mean, they didn't have all that stuff that they have now, to my
Yeah,
knowledge. I mean,
all
I
this
didn't even,
technology.
well, not even that, but like when I went to college, I had no clue that there could have been accommodations that I could have asked for. I didn't even know. And I don't need accommodations for learning, but let's just say my first 2 years I went to college at Seattle University. And then I moved back home to South Florida. But David, the amount of stairs, and stairs are okay for me as long as I'm holding on, but you got to race from one class to another depending on how much time you have. And even in high school, I felt like I was like a linebacker going through put my hand out because I was small. So I was like, listen, I knew I got to get through these people to get to my next class. So I just like put my hand out like I'm coming through because, if you don't want to be late, you get in trouble for being late.
I used to be really, really funny and when I was in school, that when they used to stare at me, I used to be like, hey, you like what you see? Come on, talk to me. What's up? What's up? You know, like we can talk this out, you know, we can be friends. It's you know, you
Did
can.
anybody ever give you a second look like because they don't expect you to say that?
Yeah, some of them are like, what's wrong with you? Like, I'm like, well, you're staring at me. What more do you want me to ask you? Obviously you're interested, you know?
So let me ask you this because we both have similar experiences. What would you say to people, if we could go back to that time and say to young people that, we knew to bridge the gap, because yes, we know that we may look different in a lot of cases. We know that everybody wants to focus on, because when you see, we all do it. You see something different, you're like, oh, what's that over there? But how do you bridge that from, hey, yes, maybe the person talks differently, or maybe they walk differently, or maybe they use a mobility aid or whatever, but they're just people too. So they might be really cool. Like David's really cool. So like they're missing out by not even just, trying to just say hi to you and
Exactly.
see what kind of person you are.
And the thing that I tell people is once like for example, they stare at me, like once you stare at me and I interact with you, I promise you that when we have the interaction we'll have in some way, shape, or form down the line, down the road, I will change your life for good.
Or David, I mean, do you feel pressure in that way? Because I never did. I was just myself. But I hope that you don't feel like you have to change their life because you're the person with the disability and that's going to be the only reason why they talk to you, because that's not true. You're awesome just the way you are.
Exactly. And not only
Sorry for my soapbox, but I had to say that.
no worries. And not only not it's not so much the disability aspect of it, it's more of like the personality part of it. Like, you know, I've met people when I was a kid that were bullies, and eventually once they got to meet me personally and get to know me, they got to see beyond the disability, beyond the CP, and they got to know who I am.
Funny you said that, because I will say, which I forgot, but you just reminded me. When I was growing up, people they would say like, look, we don't see your cerebral palsy. We don't. And I like that personally. I know now people might say that's ableism or whatever. I don't see it in exactly that way for that topic. I do. Ableism is very valid. But what I'm saying is they saw me as a person. So people have told me that we don't even notice the way you walk because they just know me as a person.
You know, but for me, this is my opinion. But for me, it's like I appreciate you seeing me for who I am, but I want you to see all of me, including the cerebral palsy. I mean, because that's a part of me too.
Yeah, I
That's a part
agree
of me
with you.
too.
I'm saying that in that context, when they said that, well, let's just say society wasn't aware as we are now, because this is going way, way back, and I have somewhat of a privileged situation. I mean, I do have cerebral palsy, but I can also use my hands. My speech is not affected. I'm completely mobile. I can take care of myself. So a lot of people with our same disability can't do those things. And I recognize that. So for me, really, the way I like to say it now, I basically consider myself in two different worlds. I'm able-bodied pretty much. I mean, like I used to really consider myself, I knew I had a disability, but for all purposes, I was able-bodied. I did everything. I just also had a disability. But now I'm like, it kind of feels like I have one foot in the able-bodied world and one foot in the disabled community, because that's where I advocate. And I have so many friends like you, and we try to raise the consciousness on many different things with regard to how people with disabilities have a very difficult time finding employment.
Oh yeah.
They, there's so many different issues that it's not just about I have CP or I have this or I have that. There's real challenges that go beyond whatever the physical symptoms might be, the mental symptoms, or all that. There's, what I'm saying, there's very real challenges that affect people's ability to earn a living wage, earn a wage period, equity, equality. There's so much.
But if I could say this one thing to those out there with a disability is that you are more than willing, if you can, to work. Don't necessarily think of your if you're able to use your arms or your legs, or one arm and one leg, or even your mouth or your feet, there's still a way for you to contribute, or your mind, there's still a way for you to contribute to society. Don't think that employers are not going to employ you, because they will in some way, shape, or form.
But they don't. They don't,
unfortunately. Yeah.
And that's why, what do people like us do? We start podcasts. We make our own merchandise. A lot of my friends, you included, become entrepreneurs. They make their own way. I see it time and time again. There's people that I really would like you to get in contact with. That's why I've been telling you about one of the other communities that I'm in, because I know you would really flourish over there. So they tell me, they say, well, Nicole, like, I just started my own thing because they couldn't get anywhere the traditional way. And you know what, David, that's sad, because these are people they have so much to contribute, and they just felt like they were hitting, a brick wall every time. So they went another way. I mean, there's validity on both sides. It's hard. Because
it's a gray area. So
well, let's put it this way. The more severe that your disability is,
the harder it is for you to function.
The harder time you're going to have, because employers look at you and they go, can I use you as an example?
Yeah, go ahead, by all means.
Okay, well, here's David coming in. He's going in for an interview. I think he has limited use of was it your left side?
The right side.
Right side. Well, okay, so the right side. So maybe that's visible to them, and they see that, and they might think, oh, well, and this has happened to some of my friends. They think, oh, well, they don't get the job because the employer might think, well, what if the person falls, or what if this, and what if that? And it's so ridiculous, because yeah, you have to be aware of people's limitations, but don't count them out completely just because you don't know how to handle somebody who is completely, let's say, able-bodied, because you're missing out. Employers are missing out.
Right. It's like, if I can go way back to the first job I tried to apply for, it was a job at a call center, and you know how call centers work. You have to answer the phone and you have to type. Now I had to take the typing test, and
Yeah.
guess who was out of luck? This guy, because I could only type with this hand. And they're like, oh, you gotta type at 40 words a minute. And I kept typing, I kept trying. I got frustrated. I even told the person who gave me the test, I'm like, is there a way to get for me to get accommodations? And they're
Good
like,
for you. Yeah.
no.
'Cause yeah.
They're like, no, you have to be able to do it in a specific amount of time. There's no way. So uh that didn't work, but that's where I found the route to education. And I got into assistant teaching, and then eventually to
Down what?
that's where I got into education. And then I
Okay.
went into assistant teaching, and then I became a lead for 3 different teams for the schools and city of Orlando. And then I became a youth advocate for the city now. So
You can't beat that. Aren't you glad you really, maybe, I think it's a blessing that you didn't pass the typing test.
oh yeah, and believe
I
me,
know
we all
I'm not minimizing it. I'm just saying that hopefully people see that
yeah,
you didn't
exactly.
give up. I mean, yes, I can imagine that it was hurtful to you, but listen, there's two types of people in this world. You're either gonna stay down when you're down, or you're gonna pick yourself up and you're gonna keep going. And David's one of those people. I happen to be one of those people too. Now, we're not saying it's easy. We're not saying that. I have
No.
a lot of days where I don't feel very well, and I'm like, do I want to keep doing this? It's hard. Advocacy work is a grind. I mean, you're basically doing it alone. Yeah, we have a community. We love our community. We're part of our community. We're friends. But for me, day in and day out, I'm behind my computer trying to educate, trying to help people as much as I can. It's a very lonely kind of thing to do, but it's very fulfilling. That's why obviously I keep doing it. But if anybody takes anything away from our conversation today, let it be what David said earlier, that if you have a disability, and we keep repeating this because we see a theme in the people that sometimes that we meet. And I think some of them think, well, David, you have a podcast, but I can't do that. Why? Why can't you? Whoever you are that's listening, and you might say, well, you can't do that. Why? Because you know what? There could have been a time when David thought he couldn't do it either, but he figured it out.
Oh yeah, it took me several attempts to get the podcast up and running and perfect. Nothing in life is just perfect that when you open out of the box. Sometimes it could
And I
just
didn't even know that story. David's never shared that story with me. I just figured he, I knew he figured it out somehow, but he just said it didn't, he had to there's steps to it. But what if in the beginning he said, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not going to keep doing it. We wouldn't be sitting here today having this conversation.
oh yeah, I almost there was at one point where I would look at the original podcast I began, and I was like, this has no sense of direction, no niche. Where am I taking this? Because it's going all over the place. And eventually, with things that are really disorganized, you won't be able to find a way to get it moving forward. And eventually, it became stagnant. So I was like, let me throw everything in the
You
recycling
started
bin,
from scratch? You
and
started
I
over?
and I started over. So
Wow.
I went through everything. So what I did was I saved all the episodes that I thought meant something for the podcast that I thought that I was going to start, and I started uploading those. And eventually from there, I started uploading new episodes. So instead of just because I had on the previous podcast, I had advocacy, I had fitness, I had product reviews, and I had miscellaneous all on the podcast, all in one spot. So I was like, this is not going to work because I have so much content, so many different things, but it's not focusing on the one thing I want to focus on. So I told myself, either you focus on advocacy or product reviews, or what do you want to do? So I said, I just throw everything in the trash and then just start all over. So that's what I do now is just I tell my story and then I open it up to others so they can share their journeys. And it's worked tremendously so far as getting people out there.
And
And
I bet it's easier because you're focusing on what really matters to you, and your attention's not divided on let's say, more miscellaneous aspects. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of those other things, but now you're more focused and you're able to, really get down to what matters.
Right. And as far as you, what kind of projects have you embarked on besides the lightings and things like that?
How much time do you have, David? I'm always doing something.
Oh,
Well,
we still got some
no,
time.
I'm
We still got some time.
no, I'm joking. Yeah, but I meant in the grand scheme of the universe, because I'm always doing something. Well, you actually led me to one of my most recent things that's going to be coming up soon. I'm going to be featured in the Orlando Voyager magazine. It's a digital magazine. So my story is going to be in there. They interviewed me for that magazine. I'm going to be sometime in the future interviewed in Stylist magazine, which is a digital magazine in the UK. They wanted to talk to disabled women who work out. So anybody who knows me knows that's right in my wheelhouse because I'm always working out, except right now because I have an injury to this thumb. So I'm not doing anything because I don't know if I would make it worse. I chose not to pursue the lightings after 2019 because it's a ton of work, more work than people would ever imagine it being. And I knew I wouldn't enjoy it if I kept doing it, because it literally, it's a full-time thing and you have to be committed to it. And I knew, like, it's like once you do something already, it's like, well, I've done that. Let's, if other people want to pick it up, there's no stopping anybody who living in any state or any city, or, hey, you want to get your city hall to light up, write to them. You want to get just that's what I was trying to do to motivate people. Hey, this is what I'm doing. It doesn't mean I'm the only person who's capable of doing this. It just means that what I did took off and I kept with it. Then I participated in last year. There was a change.org petition that was basically my tweet to the president was the impetus for that. I'm not involved in that project anymore, but it started because of me. And within like 2 months, we had, I don't know, something crazy like 45,000 signatures. It was wild. We don't know how that happened, but we're grateful to everybody. And you can still sign it if anybody wants to, but speaking of bullied, that's actually what happened to me with the people who I thought were friends of mine. That's why I'm no longer involved in that.
And speaking about projects, you've also collabed with Maurice Bernard, right?
Oh, I'm like, I know, I forgot. Thank you. I'm like, wait, yes, I was gonna. Oh, thank you. Okay, so that's why I'm wearing this shirt, because Maurice Bernard is a 3-time now, I think, Emmy Award-winning actor, the star of General Hospital. He's played the character of Sonny Corinthos for 28 years now. And I've been in love with him for like 35 years. And I know I don't look old enough, but I started watching General Hospital when I was like 15 or whatever. But the story is great because so Dave and I have been talking that cerebral palsy doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. And another thing that I have tried to do over the years, because what I want to see is national attention. That's why I did the lightings. I don't care about buildings. I'm not into architecture. None of that matters to me. I just figured you have to do something so big for our disability to get any attention. So I thought, well, you can't get any bigger than this. Like 48 states, all these, some of them were how do I say, landmark buildings, football stadiums. I mean, really big, buildings that people would recognize. And like, I thought, okay, the national media, they should want to try cover this. And I couldn't get any attention because I don't know anybody. I tried, I don't know anybody in the media. So I also wanted the morning shows, they should be announcing this like they announce every other national day that has nothing to do with a cause. So it really makes me angry. So I tweet them and I try and nothing ever happens. And sometimes I'll tweet celebrities too. And Maurice, it only takes one. He's the only one because he communicates with his fans. He retweets his fans. He loves his fans. So I said to myself in the back of my mind, one day I wrote this post and I said, I don't know what, like I said, ideas they just come into my head and I just do it, whatever. And I half the time I'm like, nothing's gonna, like really, Nicole, like you, and I say, well, I don't know, maybe, so I write this thing and I say like March is the 25th and please wear green. I kept asking him to wear green and something told me to put in the post, will you come on my podcast? Because at that time I was the host of a podcast. It wasn't my podcast. I was involved with it. I was the host. Some of you guys might know me from doing part of that work. He saw it. His assistant contacted me and said, Maurice would love to come on your podcast to help raise awareness for cerebral palsy. And I thought I was like, I believed it, but I think I was almost in tears because I mean, Maurice does not know anybody with cerebral palsy. Maurice, of all the people, there's so many other people that our community we know, and actors, or they have CP, but how do I say this nicely? The people who do the work to get the word out about our disability and raising awareness and things like that, you're looking at two of them, and neither of us are famous and we're not celebrities. That's just the truth.
Yeah, it's a shame, how money can be sometimes the root of all evil.
What do you mean?
You have money, and then you have status, and so myself coming from a small town, it's very difficult for me to get things out there. And right now, like you and I are networking, so it's about who you know, and then what can you do with with that person? How can you collab with
That's
them?
the funny thing, because now Maurice, he set up this interview and they said, okay, you have 30 minutes. He fell in love with me. He let me talk to him for an hour. The guy's incredible. He's just incredible. But now I think people think that I actually know Maurice. No, I don't know Maurice. I interviewed Maurice. He knows who I am, but I can't call Maurice. I don't have Maurice's phone number. Like a strange thing happens once you interview a celebrity, or if a celebrity retweets you, people just kind of think, and I'm like, look, Maurice is a great guy. He agreed to talk to me and he raised awareness, but it's not like let me call Maurice. No.
Yeah, it's like if people tell me, oh, Gregory Iron, oh, or Marshall Zachary, if I know them personally, and I'm like, I don't know them personally.
What does Marshall do? I'm familiar with Gregory.
Marshall is a Paralympic runner. He ran in Tokyo this year for the Olympic Games.
Oh, maybe I do. Yes, he's on your. I was following.
Yeah,
okay.
I introduced you
now, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so people.
Yeah, but okay, but you're not telling the whole story. You actually do know Gregory personally, and you could.
Yeah, I now know him personally. we now talk, like we're practically buddy. So if we need any, like we'll just message each other. So.
Right, and the funny part is that Maurice actually, I shared something in my stories, and he actually replied to it, which he never does because he's so busy. He'll just reshare, what you do. And when I interviewed him, he had just interviewed Jessica Frew on his show State of Mind, which is a phenomenal show on YouTube, centering around mental health, because Maurice has bipolar and he was institutionalized twice in his life, very young age. So he does a lot of awareness. He's won so many awards. He's changing everything with respect to how people look at mental health and all that. But when he talked to me, he had just interviewed Jessica Frew, who also has cerebral palsy, but Jessica, very different than me. She uses her eyes to communicate. It's this technology. It's like fascinating. And she's in a wheelchair. I mean, she can't speak. So when he met me, he actually said, if anybody goes and watches part 1, because there's 2 parts to it, they're both fantastic. I'm not saying so just because I'm the host, but people were like, Nicole, it looked like you've known him your whole life. I said, I know, that's how fantastic the whole thing was, but I digress. So at one point he said to me, he was like, but how does it affect you? He goes, because you look perfect. Because in his mind, he couldn't, you know what I mean? He couldn't grapple with, here I am talking to him. I don't look like I have any, let's say, limitations. So the way I explained it to Maurice is that just like him with bipolar, and sometimes he has, you know, anxiety. Well, he went through a really bad time with anxiety through the pandemic. So I told him that with cerebral palsy, there's misfiring going from the brain to your body.
Right.
It's the same thing with him. It's just a different. So it kind of clicked there. You know, I kind of tried to, because he doesn't know what it feels like to be in my body or your body. And I don't know what it feels like to have a manic episode or anything like that. So, yeah.
So what's as far as like what we do with our advocacy work and cerebral palsy, what are some things you can kind of give our listeners to bring some encouragement or to kind of take away from what we talked about today?
Well, I think it goes back to the overall theme of our talk today, which is we are trying to bring awareness to our disability, but particularly the month of March, because the whole month is Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month in the United States. And there's a whole day, March 25th, that is National Cerebral Palsy Awareness Day. And for some reason, those 2 things just don't get announced in the media. So we're trying to do it ourselves to try to get traction for that. But the words of encouragement that I would say would be to anybody who has a disability. It doesn't have to be cerebral palsy, it could be anything. David and I think I can speak for him, and he'll jump in here if I'm saying something that, you know, he disagrees with or he agrees with. We want you to know that you have so much to offer the world, whatever it is, and you might have to share your gifts differently, and that's okay. Like David with the typing test, if he went to take that typing test now, he should be able to get accommodations for it. And if not, he could fight for those. And that's a whole other thing.
Right.
But if he wanted to do something that involved typing, and ironically, he does now because he has to type for his podcast and do all that stuff. He's got to do it, you know, so he gets to do it his own way. But don't set yourself short. Is that, you know what I mean? Don't.
I would agree. Don't set yourself short, you know. Your potential is limitless. You know, you can do anything you can put your mind to.
I mean, because and I always tell people, because I think maybe they might think, for an example, well, Nicole, I don't want to get buildings to light up. You don't have to. Well, Nicole, I don't want to start a podcast. You don't have to. Well, Nicole, I don't want to write a blog because I have a website and I write articles. You do not. Advocacy, if you want to advocate, right, it's up to you. It's up to you.
Exactly.
You can do whatever you want. If you don't want to advocate, you don't have to do that either.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's basically it's what you can do, you know, and what you want to do, not what you can't do, you know. But like you said earlier, there's no can't in the vocabulary, in our vocabulary. You have to keep pushing forward, and you have to as I said in one of the podcasts I did previously last year, improvise, adapt, and overcome.
That's perfect. And really you have to have confidence in yourself. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. You can read books, you can listen to podcasts, you can find mentors, whether it's maybe you have, it could be a parent, it could be a teacher, like David said, one of his teachers. It could be people like us, people in the community. We're all there. We're all doing this together. We all want to support each other, but it all starts with you. It starts with your mindset and how
Exactly.
you think about yourself. Do you think I actually thought that I was going to get 100 buildings to light up? No, I was just like, well, let me just try this idea. Let's see what happens. Maybe I can raise awareness. And you know what? If I didn't do that, it still would have been okay. If I got 1 state, 5 states, 10 states, 50, it was all okay.
Right. You actually went out there and did your best, and it got really far. It got really far. All it takes is for you to try. Trying never hurts.
Yeah. Well, I do know this about myself. I have one of my superpowers is basically I just don't give up. Most people, the roadblocks that I encountered with the lightings, they never would have continued. Never. The amount of emails that I had to send, the amount of follow-up, I had to research literally buildings and contact real estate companies to find out who owned the building, because you had to find it was wild. It was wild. But if I would have said to myself, oh, I don't know who owns this building. I don't know how to find that out. I don't know. I don't live in 48 different states, David. I can't be at 100 lightings at the same time. I don't know all the people that I was communicating with personally, but I had to find a way, because how else was I gonna you have to just be willing. You have to be willing to do the work. And if you're not, that's okay too. But realize that you're limiting yourself by, I don't want to use the word, giving up. I mean, that we're not saying that you got to stick with everything. There are times when I give up on stuff all the time. If it's not right, or, it's past its point or whatever. So we're not saying that. We're just saying, don't feel like because you have a disability that you can't go after whatever your dreams and goals are.
Exactly. Because if we can do it, so can you.
Yeah.
And that's something that's something I keep on my bracelet here, which guys can't really see, but it's one of my mottos that I keep with me all the time.
And what does it say? I know I can't see it, but what did it say on there? Did you put it all on there?
It says, if I can do it, so can you. But it's a hashtag as well. So that's what I use on everything.
Oh, if I can do it, so can you?
So can you. Yep.
Well, that's perfect.
So Nicole, where can we find more about you?
Like I said, David will put everything in the information. The easiest way is just to go to my website, NicoleLuongo.com. That's my name, NicoleLuong as in George O.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at green4CP. And on Instagram, I am at whatCPlookslike. And hey guys, please use the hashtag. Just take pictures of yourself doing things that you're doing, whatever you want to show the world what's going on in your world with cerebral palsy. We want to know. We want to see what you're doing. So
yeah, show your support. And like he said, if you want something to happen in your community, try your best. Just write anybody, reach out to your local government, to your legislators, to anybody in your community, anybody, news stations, anybody.
All that stuff. Yeah. Look, my motto is, I'm trying to think, what is it now? Because I repeat it so often, but if you never try, the answer will always be no.
Yeah, so
But
I would, I
yeah.
would definitely go for it. Go for it.
Yep. Just go for it. Mm-hmm.
Well, Nicole, thank you so much for being on the show. It was fun.
It was fun. Thank you, David.
And you guys, you're gonna be able to see this episode go up the same day. So right when we get off the air, it's gonna be available for you to see and to share. And I hope that our conversation can bring light to you as far as what CP looks like, because what CP looks like, you're looking at it right on your screen. So I hope you guys enjoyed this show and take care.